Hello and welcome to the Gavel, coming to you from Channels TV studios in the Federal Capital Territory. I am Terry Ikumi. Now, as the end of the annual recess of federal lawmakers gradually approaches, the relevant committees of both chambers have had to cut short their holiday to attend to the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper, which is part of processes to prepare the 2022 budget. Now, the Senate concluded its public hearing a week after that of the House. And at one of those hearings, the Group Managing Director of the NNPC informed the lawmakers of the federal government's plan to reintroduce fuel subsidy, pending ongoing negotiations to put an end finally to it. So here are the details of the MTEF FSP public hearing of the Senate. The MTEF sets parameters with which the budget is prepared, including the borrowing plan of the government. The assumptions in the MTEF puts the oil benchmark at $57 per barrel for 2022 and 2023, and $55 per barrel for 2024. Oil production is set at 1.88 million barrels per day for 2022, 2.23 million barrels per day for 2023, and for 2024, 2.22 million barrels per day, while the exchange rate is kept constant at 410.15 naira, and a downward trend for inflation is anticipated.
The draft 2022 to 2024 MTEF FSP has been prepared against the backdrop of global economic recovery amidst improved vaccination outlook and lower incidence of infection, despite recent surge in the Delta variant. However, the medium-term fiscal framework shows that there are continuing global challenges in the aftermath of COVID-19. Overall, fiscal risks are somewhat elevated for Nigeria due to persistent weaknesses in the economy and slower than expected recovery, which threatens our ambitious revenue growth targets as seen in the 2021 performance up to June. Non-oil revenue performance has been impressive and heading in the right direction. Efforts will be sustained in this regard.
What we're dealing with in our advisory to the Ministry of Finance is on the basis of averages and the forecast from very many renowned international forecast agencies. And that's why the best of the forecast that we have seen is that $7 in 2022 is very realistic, and this is the number that we can live with. Of course, bearing in mind that when you go through some of the advisory agencies, you will see numbers as high as 61, including the World Bank forecast is for $61 to the barrel, or even 62 in the year 2024.
Although no provision was made for fuel subsidy in 2021, the federal government is reintroducing it in 2022.
There's an ongoing process that is engaging organized level, civil society organization, and very many other institutions of government that are involved in this process to arrive at a landing on how and when we can exit the subsidy regime, to be very precise. And that is why, if you see the 2022 Appropriation Act, there is a provision for subsidy in the year 2022. The reason is that we are not sure we can conclude this process before the end of this year or even early in 2022. That is why that provision is made. And it's the reality that we are facing today. And we can understand this very clearly, Excellency and distinguished senators. Oil pricing is a very, very critical element of national security. And as we all may be aware, during the NSAS events, some of us may be aware that, it has really some linkage with the price of petroleum until the matters were resolved. So it is an engagement that is ongoing, distinguished senators. We do realize that there is need for us to exit this ultimately. The Petroleum Industry Act has made provision for an ultimate exit from this subsidy environment, but that decision has not been made, and there's going to be an implementation process under the PIA, which the National Assembly graciously passed as a bill of the National Assembly. So we're working on it, distinguished senators. We'll exit this ultimately, but there's really no time frame on this. Having said this, it is very connected to the issue of how much of oil are we consuming today. We have said it over and over that the current supply level of about 60 million liters today, it is not our national consumption. We know for sure that any time we supply less than 60 million liters of PMS into the market, we will have shortages. But we are also very convinced that that is not our consumption.
The Senate Committee Chairman on Finance raised a concern about revenue generation to curb borrowing to fund the budget.
The revenue of Nigerian custom is going down. We are not meeting our targets. And we have done everything to support the Nigerian custom. We have reduced the tariff so as to discourage smuggling. We have also passed into law all the necessary acts or laws that the Nigerian custom has put before us, except if there are some selected few remaining. And part of the assurances we are given was that once these laws are put in place, we can be assured that the revenue of Nigerian custom will double. But rather, it is not showing that trend. I don't know, maybe there are other factors mitigating against the possibility of having more revenue from the Nigerian custom that you think we need to assist on from this side of the divide. I want to know if this year's projection we are looking at is achievable in line with what we have achieved so far in 2021.
And as of today, Mr. Chairman, the bulk of our revenue comes from import. In most climes where the customs collect revenue, they rely mostly on excise. And that means the production within the country. Today in Nigeria, as you know very well, Mr. Chairman, the only excise we are authorized to collect is on tobacco and alcoholic beverages. All other industries that produces in Nigeria do not pay excise. And therefore, we narrowed ourselves to that unpredictable ground where we don't have any control as regards the influx of import. And therefore, we are therefore vulnerable to the fact that we can only act with what has been imported.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian Communications Commission has indicated that it is ready for deployment of 5G spectrum by 2022. CEO of the NCC, Umar Dambata, stated this at the MTEF public hearing of the Senate. According to him, the 5G deployment plan has been submitted to the federal government, and each slot would go for a reserve price of 75 billion naira.
For the 2022, now I'm moving to the 3-year MTEF projections. We're expecting to project, we're projecting to get 115 billion naira in 2022. That projection did not take into consideration the 5G spectrum auction that we intend to do. And it is very, very important, Mr. Chairman, to stress this. Each slot of the 5G spectrum is going to be, is going for a reserve price. The reserve price is 75 billion naira. Okay, and in an auction, it can go as high as 100 billion, if not more. So I think the projection was done without taking into consideration the auction that will be taking place for the 5G spectrum, for which our state of readiness is. No, it is not. Why? Because we have not gotten the approval of the federal government on the 5G deployment as yet. But our state of readiness is 95%. Anytime we're given the instruction to proceed with the auction, we are ready. Why am I saying this is because we have submitted to government the 5G deployment plan. We have constituted the 5G auction committee, and they have virtually concluded their work. And we have the spectrum itself, to be auctioned. So these three things, we're ready. We're just waiting for government, to give us the nod, to proceed.
Our next report is on the investigative hearing of the House of Representatives Committee on Customs with relevant maritime sector players to address the issue of port congestion and other recurring challenges in the sector.
During the hearing on ways to improve operations at the nation's ports, the House Committee on Customs was concerned about the monitoring of importation and exportation, sanctions on shipping lines for failure to refund deposits after empty containers have been returned, among others.
It is equally important for Nigerian Shippers Council to tell this committee what is doing to monitor the excesses of all the shipping lines in trying to kill the export business by leaving export full containers at the ports and load empty containers for juicy import freight.
I want to report to you on that, sir, that we have actually streamlined tariffs of shipping lines. That is no longer an issue as far as our maritime industry is concerned. Regarding container deposits, Mr. Chairman, there is a sanction mechanism that the Shippers Council has in place where there is a violation and where these deposits are not refunded as at when due.
They also questioned some alleged illegalities in the operations by the Nigerian Ports Authority and seeming inefficiency by bonded terminals.
The idea was for all trucks going into the port locations, to exit from appointed truck terminals. And then you'll be called up and you move from one terminal to the other. And then they are supposed to have e-tickets. This way, terminal operators are able to know when trucks are coming in. In recent times, they have been given a dashboard that will even enable them know when trucks are coming in. But there are multiple problems which we have addressed. Some of them are outside that of Nigerian Ports Authority.
The Ports Authority alleged that security operatives also contribute to the menace by setting up illegal checkpoints around the port area.
The first problem is the issue of extortion. You have multiple checkpoints that are just springing up. And these checkpoints are manned by police officers. At times you find men in uniform, either naval or military, escorting vehicles illegally. At times in a day you can count 15, 20, 30 checkpoints within the Tinkan-Apapa corridor. And it's really affecting the flow of traffic. There are over 5,000 containers across the ports that are overtime cargo. A cargo is overtime after 90 days.
Submissions from the interaction suggest that the volume of cargo is increasing and there must be a corresponding increase and expansion in the capacity of the terminals to meet up with cargo clearance.
Our guests.
The committee also interacted with 5 banks on an alleged 10 billion naira belonging to the Nigerian Customs Service, which was trapped in 5 banks operating in the country. Chairman of the Committee on Customs and Excise threatened that the House would take action against the banks if they fail to remit the money.
We have discovered 10.6 billion against only 5 banks. We give each bank the opportunity to defend itself. And what we find out against you, we are not doing this alone. All the bank, we will need your SLA. I know what you know, your SLA, service level agreement. We will need it, your MOU that you have with custom for the period under review. Because there are some things we are noticing, which I'm still going to mention. So we want to see whether it is the SLA that is 40 or is the MOU that is 40. If you don't give us within 7 days, we don't have any option than to tell the customs, the Ministry of Finance, to remove you from collection of custom duty. And this we will do immediately if you don't give us within 7 days. All the banks here, I think one is gone, we have only 4. We are mandating you to provide proof of remittance of custom and excise duty revenue collection as in CBN NIBSS statement for the period under review. Then there is something that we notice with some banks. It's like they develop their own software. They are not using the interswitch. I don't know whether it's in your SLA that you can develop your own software, then you will now be the alpha and omega of everything of the money that does not belong to you.
Welcome back. To further understand the details from the interaction with the House Committee on Customs and stakeholders in the maritime industry, here's a conversation with the chairman of the committee, Honorable Leke Abejide.
Customs, as regard port congestion, they can do little because is not within their purview alone. If customs seize a cargo, they have to take it to court for condemnation. I have asked Controller General, why is it that we have so many containers? If you understand what the MPA Managing Director told us, said they have over 5,000 in the ports, and in the warehouses of custom, they have over 2,000. So we're talking about 8,000 containers now, both in the ports and at the custom warehouses. Actually, I can say custom is not fast enough in the auctioning of those containers that are in the warehouses. But for those ones that are yet to be condemned by courts, let's blame our bureaucratic system as well in the court system. So we are thinking in the new act that we are working on now, that is the repeal and reenactment of Custom and Excise Management Act, to have a special court for this type of issues, so that custom can condemn on time and then auction cargoes. Then I've asked the managing director of MPA to give me or give the committee the list of all these containers that are over time, because what he's saying is that there are over 3-4 years containers, whereas by law it should be 8 days. So when we get this list, we will publish it in national dailies and electronic media, including your own station, and give them only 1 month. If they don't come, we will ask custom to auction all of them.
But then there's the issue of security, which these policemen provide just by being at this checkpoint. You find that some persons would rather have security agencies escort their vessels or their containers out of the port instead of, exposing themselves to danger. And if you say that these checkpoints are illegal, as also stated by the NPA chairman, what engagements are you having, or do you plan to have with the security agencies, specifically the police, to ensure that these checkpoints are taken off?
There are illegal checkpoints manned by police. There was a time Navy was involved. They have all illegal, including the area boys in Lagos. All those ones, they are there illegally. It's not by no law. It's not creation of any law. When we went on oversight last year, we discovered those things. Then we were thinking it was only the presidential task force, because they too they constituted a lot of nuisance there, creating problems. After they left, the remaining illegal agencies are still there. So when there's something we are doing about them, we are going to take note and know them. We are going to meet them by surprise. I think if 1 or 2 are not being used as scapegoats, others will not stop doing it. So this is the issue. From the port as well, I think you took note of what happened, especially for bonded container to move from out of the port, whereby we have custom has 18 seats. Starting from controller to exit, 18, and they number them.
From what we've heard, the CG has said that there are 3 scanners coming in. There's one that will go to Tinkan Island, there's a Tinkan port, there's another one that will go to the Apapa port, and then the final one will go to the Onair port.
We have been hearing that news. Initially, last year, when this custom came to defend their budget before us in the House of Representatives, led by the Controller General of Customs himself, he told us that Central Bank of Nigeria procured 4 scanners for them. And I believe your station was there when we took him up during the MTEF defense. I'm a member of Committee on Finance. And CBN was there, the minister was there, the CG himself was there. The CBN said they didn't promise to buy scanners for them, that the 3 scanners was procured also from the 1% CISS money, which is part of customs money too. So that is, now, according to CG, the 3 scanners are here. Maybe they are going to be installed soon. So if they are installed, number one, there will be an improvement in revenue.
Then the security aspect, which is more important than anything now in this country. Because as I talk to you, ammunitions are still coming in through the ports. Because there's nothing to detect it. If you load 1 by 20 feet containers, let's say, of raw materials, you can add maybe 5 AK-47 or AK-49 under. Nobody can see it. It's not every container they can examine 100%. Even the CG agree in that MTEF defense. In the next budget of customs, we must repair the scanners that are repairable. Already we invited Smith Detection, the manufacturer of the scanners at the port, and they told us that 13 can still be repaired. And this 13 can work for the next 10 years without problem. If and only if they handle it well, the way it was handled when the service providers were on ground.
Now, you've repeatedly hammered on how important it is for the customs to up their revenue generation game, considering that they are perhaps the highest revenue generating agency of the government, as you have said in some cases. Now, what would you say is the reason for this setback? Because you've also said that they are not living up to expectation per se as far as revenue generation is concerned. What's the reason from your interaction with them, or what reasons do they give for the low revenue generation or not meeting up to the expectation of revenue that they expected to collect?
In fairness, if we want to be fair, to be objective, custom is doing well in revenue generation. Despite that, they have been handicapped in so many areas. Number one, they are underfunded. Custom that generate these trillions, they are underfunded. In terms of revenue, they have done extremely good this year. Even last year, despite COVID, they generated 1.562 trillion. Now, as at June this year, they have made 1.2 trillion. There's no how they will not cross 2 trillion this year. It's very certain they will cross it. So, but they can even get 3 trillion if, as you have said rightly, we put carbonated drinks, that is Coca-Cola and the rest, to be paying excise. And we automate them. It's not that you just say, this is what I have produced and take this. No. We automate it right from the feeding of the machine to the exit of that product. We know how many quantity produced in a day.
So how do we balance the revenue generation of the customs, which is largely due to importation? And then there's the export part, which you say is not good for the country. You say that the monies we get from revenue generation is from imports. So where's the balance here in such a way that the nation ultimately benefits?
Every serious country in the whole world works towards what we call mercantilism. That is, they work towards increasing their exports, because export is an injection into the economy. The import is leakage. All this import you are seeing has been done with our naira being depleted, because you take dollar from here and send it out. You reduce the capacity of our currency. So the benefit is going to be, one, if our export is now higher, we are getting more income, naira will be very strong, because the supply bar, that is dollar now, will be pushed close to equilibrium position. So closing the gap means naira is becoming strengthened. I'm talking in an economist, as an economist now. So the supply bar now, you will have more dollars here to push the supply back close to equilibrium position, and then naira will become strengthened and become strong.
And that's the Gavel this week. Do remember to send feedback to the Gavel at channelstv.com. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.